Welcome to episode 299 of CppCast, the first podcast for C++ developers by C++ developers. I'm your host, Rob Irving, joined by my co-host, Jason Turner. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm okay, Rob. How are you doing?
Doing okay. Coming up on another big round number.
Yeah, that's what they tell us.
Yeah. I sometimes forget about it because we don't I always mention the number in the opening of the episode, but I don't list it on the website or anything. Maybe I should.
Oh, is that right?
I don't think it's easily discoverable on the website.
Huh.
Yeah.
I never paid attention, I guess.
Yeah. Well, at the top of every episode, I like to read a piece of feedback. We got this tweet from Steven, and this is from a conversation between you and him on Twitter over last week. Jason, do you want to tell us a little bit about this conversation?
Yeah, this was in response to my YouTube video about breaking ABI, basically. And so Steven relayed a story about the situation that he was in at work and a company that couldn't update tool chains at all. And I said, I was thinking about starting like a Twitter campaign to help people like you find new jobs.
Right. So he wrote, I just needed a push to apply for new jobs before the mass layoffs came around. The search works better when you're currently employed. Plus, you have a bit more freedom to study up for harder technical interviews. And yeah, I mean, if you're not in a good place, especially if you feel like your company is not like progressing technically, then maybe it's worth looking around.
Yeah, and Steven suggests, he says, if you're listening to this and in a job where people aren't trying to learn or grow, you should be searching for a better job. It's okay to leave your current one. That's Steven's advice.
I do find it out there.
What's that? Sorry.
You just said lots of opportunities are out there.
It does seem like that's the case right now.
Yeah.
And I do find it surprising how it does seem true that if you currently have a job, it's easier to find a new job, which seems incredibly unfair, really.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, we'd love to hear your thoughts about the show. You can always reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or email us at feedback@cppcast.com. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes or subscribe on YouTube. Joining us today is Harald Achitz. Harald is a longtime developer who worked in a wide range of different fields and on all major platforms mostly, but not exclusively, in projects where C++ played an important role. He works as a freelancer in Stockholm and has recently joined Tobii, the world's leading supplier of eye tracking technology and eye tracking solutions. In his spare time, he likes to be with his family, contribute to open source software, and manage communities. One of his favorite activities is organizing the Stockholm C++ meetup group, Stockholm CPP. Harald, welcome to the show.
Yes, thanks. Hi, Rob, Jason. I'm very happy you have me, and I'm very excited also to be here.
It's great to have you here.
I'm very curious. You say all major platforms. I'm curious if you've targeted any minor platforms, though.
Well, if you self-made Linux distributions,
okay,
that's minor platforms, then embedded Linux, yes.
Self-made Linux distributions. That's I've never gone down that route. There's the people that like the Linux from scratch kind of scenario.
Yes, but you don't use it actually. You use tools like either Yocto or Buildroot. And this gives you a base distribution with recipes, which you adapt. And then you put together with, I want to have this software in these packages, and then you build, and it outputs the image on the root file system and the cross-compilation tools you need.
So are you currently running one of your custom rolled Linux distributions on any of your machines?
Here, not, but in job there are several different targets, yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We might have to ask you more about your eye tracking software later as well.
Yeah, it does sound interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, Harald, we got a couple news articles to discuss. Feel free to comment on any of these, and we'll start talking to you more about the world of C++ Mobile, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so this first one is an upcoming update from Visual Studio. This is a post on the Visual C++ blog, and this is 2 to 3x performance improvements for debug builds. And I am really looking forward to this. It's coming in Visual Studio 2019 16.10. I think the preview build for that is out now. But yeah, 2 to 3x performance improvement for debug builds. I saw a lot of people talking about this one on Twitter, especially like game developers talking about how much they're looking forward to this, because if you need to debug a game like a AAA 3D game that you're working on, and you're trying to play through it with in debug mode, it can be extremely difficult to do. Like those games would get really slowed down from being debugged. So they're really looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to it myself.
I love the timing graph in the results section of this article, because it kind of says ominously, Project 1 and Project 2 are customer provided samples. So I'm like, but wait, Project 2, it makes it sound like they're anonymized, but Project 2 actually is a clickable link. And Project 2 is someone's article from 2.5 years ago, roundabout, where they're compiling debug and release builds of their project on various platforms. And a debug run on Visual Studio is like 30 times slower than Clang. So 2 to 3 times in performance improvement is huge, but still shows that they probably still have a ways to go compared to some of the other compilers. But it's all their error checking stuff that helps you debug your program if there's a problem in debug mode. So it makes sense.
Yeah, and we often talk about how Visual Studio, one of the advantages it has over other, platforms and IDEs is the debugger. So it makes sense that the debugger might be a little bit slower because it's doing so much for you.
Yeah.
Harold, are you a Visual Studio user or other platforms?
Not particular, but I like to write the code in a way that it also compiles with Visual Studio. And one of the reasons is the debug build, because it enables so much checks, and some of the checks you can also have with Clang or GCC, but you need to provide extra compiler flags, and then you are API incompatible. And Visual Studio, everyone expects that you have debug builds from all your dependencies down to the runtime, right? So this is just there. And you get a lot of information, or not checks, additional checks in your form for your programs if you run the debug builds and the unit test in debug mode. So this is good, and the performance improvements is for sure a good thing always.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Next thing we have is a link to VC package, and we had Nicole Mazuka on a couple months ago, and one of the things we talked about with her was that VC package was going to be searchable. And I'm not sure if this just came out now or if it was out a little bit earlier, but this is VC package's new search page where you can easily go and look for what packages are available.
I think they used a C++ Now talk to announce this, perhaps. Something like that. It was very recent that they announced it.
Nicole mentioned it was coming when we had her on, though, right? I think.
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, they have looks like 1,656 packages up right now. So definitely have a lot to offer. Very cool.
Are either one of you using package management at the moment for C++ work?
I'm starting to look more into Conan.
I used Conan a lot, and I also used to VC package.
I haven't tried VC package in a while. The last time I tried it, I kind of felt like it was very heavy-handed. Like you run VC package and it's like, well, I have to have my version of CMake and I have to have whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I have all these things already. I feel like I need to give it another shake again, I guess, just to see how it looks today.
Probably worthwhile. Yeah. All right. And then this last post we have is UC Pakinen's blog we've had on the show before, and he has this post: should we break the ABI is the wrong question. And obviously this is a topic we've been talking about a lot on the show lately, with whether or not C++ ABIs should be broken. But he brings up an interesting point that, that's maybe not the right discussion to have. We should be talking more about how we can break it safely and not, or maybe breaking it is not the right word, but be able to handle ABI changes in a safe manner. Right, Jason?
Yeah, so we can move forward when the time comes.
Yeah.
I still find it interesting, I guess, because Visual Studio didn't guarantee ABI compatibility before Visual Studio 2015. Before that, every release of Visual Studio broke ABI.
Right.
You still break it between debug and release build.
Right.
And I'm not sure about this blog post. I mean, it basically suggests to have different folders and putting per API in a folder as you do with architecture. But this doesn't respect that this would be just for the C++ world, and no one would love C++. We really need this. The other thing, it's for Linux distribution. It's also not a major issue. Red Hat and OpenSUSE, they rebuild from source everything. So they just update the compiler, rebuild everything at the flags, and have the new API in place. And then they stay for the supported time period with this what they have. And it's also a question with technologies like Flatpak and Snap and Docker container, if this is where you surround the things in isolation anyway, and you can put in what you want, if this is such a huge issue. So
yeah, I've only briefly used Docker containers for, this kind of thing. Someone in my YouTube video commented that apparently Docker is now starting to experience its own version of DLL hell.
Really?
And so there's some discussion about like containers of containers to avoid these issues. We're all just doomed at this point, I think.
I mean, technically speaking, you can maybe do a lot. The Apple world you can make universal binaries where you get 2 architectures or 4 architectures, even for different platforms, into one binary. So technically, there is a lot possible. The question is if anyone will implement this on the operating system level just with ++, and I don't think that this will ever happen. So I think just break the API and rebuild the stuff, and if you can't rebuild, you're stuck with the compiler version, and that's how it is, right?
Right.
So I guess, Harold, you're of the opinion that it should be okay to break ABI. We should just rebuild everything.
Of course, I mean, maybe in a sane way, not like just for the sake of breaking the API, but when there are good reasons.
Sure.
That give subtle improvements that are measurable, then this should be happening, yes.
Measurable improvements. That sounds like a good litmus test. I'm not sure. Yeah, whatever. Something like that.
All right. Well, Harold, you reached out to me after we talked about C++ Mobile, and I think in some feedback from an earlier episode. And it's certainly been a long time since we had an in-depth discussion of the state of mobile development with C++. So do you want us to maybe bring us up to speed about your thoughts on the current state of C++ mobile development?
Well, okay, the current state of C++ mobile development is quite a question. What do you mean when you talk about mobile development, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing you have in mind is very likely iOS and Android and apps you run on them.
Sure.
But there is, of course, more. There are people that run their own Android system and they put it in cars. And then you have a system programming part, more on Android than on the iOS. You have different feature phones where I cannot speak a lot about. These are these very cheap phones on very cheap hardware or inexpensive hardware in the countries like India. And so I cannot speak about them, but someone needs to make the operating systems and the applications for them also. And they are most likely in a native language, C or C++. Then you have, of course, niche projects like Jolla, which is a Finnish company which makes the operating system, Sailfish OS, for mobile phones, which is a Linux under the hood, and where the user interface is Qt or Qt. And then there is, of course, UBboard, which is the continuation of Ubuntu Touch, where Ubuntu wanted to bring their stuff on the mobile phone, which is also a Linux phone with a flavor of Qt. So then when you take these two and you say, okay, then you're in Qt land in developing or QML. So there is, of course, then a very strong relation to C++. then there are various other things like the Pine platform, Pine phone, which make an inexpensive Linux telephone, and they have also an ARM notebook, and I think they will also bring up a watch sooner or later.
I didn't know about the watch.
That's right. I think they tried to make a whole ecosystem around this. So there is this. I cannot say how open this is, but I would imagine this is just like any other Linux to develop for. So you might have options for C++. Yeah, and this is the thing. And when you so for the system, you're always in a native language, right? Like C and C++, right? And when it comes to app, the question is, why do you use C++ for anything in an app? And there are multiple answers. One answer is maybe you have already code that you just want to share,
right,
and you don't want to re-implement, or it's not possible to re-implement due to performance requirements, because I think we all agree that C++ is still very fast and maybe faster than the other options you have. And then there is, of course, just the idea of sharing code, and this is maybe one of the most difficult ideas. But just sharing code, because there are a lot of different options for sharing code on the mobile platform. There is Xamarin for .NET, there's React Native, there is Kotlin Native also these days. There is what is called Flutter from Google. So these are they all promise write one code and use it on multiple platforms. None of this has been the killer reason to do so. C++ is also not the killer reason, right? And most likely the reason, what I think, is you're going into mobile development world where you have iOS developer and Android developer. They are very occupied by the infrastructure, by what's going on the phone, what's the development on the devices, the development on the platform itself. And when you bring them a different language or different technology, they have a hard time to say, oh, this is cool. And I think this we have seen this happen on multiple places, like, for example, Dropbox, and on Slack also. Later, we started with a shared code base and then said, okay, let's just continue with two development teams. But I think it still can be a good idea to share C++ code. It's not particularly difficult to develop for both platforms. So for both platforms, if you develop with CMake, you can use toolchain files, CMake toolchain files. So one is in the NDK. When you install the native development kit for Android, you have in the folder the CMake toolchain file, and you just say CMake, here is my toolchain file, and please use this Android platform, this API, and then you're good to go. And for iOS, it's pretty similar. There is an iOS toolchain file that you can utilize, where you just set up a few variables. I want simulator or want the device. Here is the toolchain file, and you're good to go. The problem, of course, is you develop something and you can make the dependencies with it. So I have good success with Conan creating dependencies. So Conan packaged you the NDK and packaged the iOS toolchain, so you can rebuild all your dependencies with Conan if you want and use them. But then you end up with C++ with a component, right? And this component you need to deliver to iOS or Android developer. And this is a very critical part in the whole process. How do you do this, right? So the best case would be probably to have to deliver this like any third-party library for them, that they don't know this is a C++ component. Then they will have just something they include into a project and will use and maybe not ask. If you let them know this, but that this is C++ by creating Xcode project and add the C++ files there, and they will see it, or having your C++ project in Android Studio and Android Studio build it and they will see it. It's maybe a little bit difficult because these people are not C++ developer. And if you are not a C++ developer and then you have to deal with the C++ infrastructure, it's very difficult. So this is maybe a little bit of overview.
Okay.
Well, since you mentioned Dropbox, it's been a while, but we have had a developer from Dropbox on a long time ago talking about Djinni, their cross-platform library, which they unfortunately did abandon, I think a year or so ago. Do you want to tell us about Djinni and the current state of that? Because the open source community has kind of embraced it and kept it going, right?
Well, this is actually the reason why I reached out to you. So in my previous job at Electrolux, we were using Djinni. And Djinni is basically a tool to generate glue code to use C++ code in Java or in Objective-C, and with Objective-C also in Swift. And via Java also in Kotlin. And Dropbox was using this, was developing this, and made it open source, and this was great. And then quite some project adopted it. So you had last year, let me look at my notes, you had Dave Hagedorn in the show last year. So he also mentioned Djinni, that they use it. And I think even Google is using it. If you look at the Chrome credits, if you type Chrome / credits, or is it this? Yes, credits. Then you get a list of third-party software they use, and they have a link to Djinni on the mobile phone, not on the browser. So at least on iOS, this is the case. So a lot of people were using this project, and there's a Slack channel, and so there was still a little bit of ongoing discussion. And me and a few others who said, "Oh, it would be nice if this would be maintained because people have ideas." There were a lot of not merged pull requests where people provided solutions for problems, and they just no one will ever merge this pull request. And my personal motivation was I wanted just to have from the generated code a few locations adapted where the header files are located to, because you say Djinni generate the glue code, and it generates implementation files and public header files, and I wanted to have all the public header files in one folder that I can just say, hey, install this folder without looking which one is it, right?
Right.
And then other people had also said, it would be nice if there would be some development. And we grouped, as we started with 3 people and made a GitHub organization. And mostly me and Johannes Kraft have been very active at the beginning. And what we did was, first of all, splitting the project in its component, because it was one repository and it included a lot of things. So we have the Djinni generator, which is for taking an interface definition file and generating the glue code that you need. Then you need a support lib that provides some common functionality to use the generated code. Then there was a IntelliJ plugin that you have syntax highlighting.
Oh, nice.
For the interface definition files in Android Studio or C-Line or whatever you use.
Nice.
And yes, and so the first thing was, okay, we looked at this and we split it up in the new GitHub organization. And from there on, we added a few stuff. We improved some things, like I added my header location output. So this is now as a wanted. I think we have a super nice documentation. We have continuous integration, pretty good. So with GitHub Actions, that on pull requests we run all the unit tests. And for the IntelliJ, even continuous delivery. When you tag it, it goes automatically to the JetBrains job. And then yeah, after a few while, some people dropped out, others came in, and it grew a little bit over the time, over the last 6 months, a little bit more. In the most recent time, we had new language bindings added, namely Python. So the Python binding have been developed actually already by Dropbox, and they have been in a branch, but they never made it into master. And
so you can now do Python in addition to Java and Swift?
Exactly, wow. Yes. So it was there, and we looked at it and said it's actually very, very sad that this is there and is rotting the code, right? and the Canadian guy, Leandro Feitas, I hope I said the name correct, he has done a huge step with this, cleaning it up, because it was several years old and there was this Python 2, Python 3 situation.
Right.
And we said, okay, let's clean this up and throw this out. And also there was C++17 was not here when Dropbox used it. So optional was, how do we handle optional? Now we said, okay, let's go to C++17. And from the same channel, also from Leandro, there comes the it's called C# binding. It's C++/CLI. It's absolutely something I have no clue about this managed C++. But there is now a generator also for this code. So if you're on the Windows platform, you can share your C++ code with C# also. So at the moment, you can generate Objective-C, Java, Python, and the code you need to interface with C#.
Very nice. So it sounds like the project's advanced a lot since Dropbox abandoned it now.
Yes, since I mean, I said this, my motivation was there is this project and it's rotting, but it's a good project and it has real world user. Yeah. So because I communicated with them and I've seen it and I've self using it, and it's actually a really good project. So the it's well. I think it's a good project. It's well designed. The interface definition language is simple, but gives you a good way to express what you want to do. It's tailored to what we call modern C++, or post C++11 C++, from what it supports. And yeah, I thought about this, right? When you do a little bit and stick with it, you show continuation and show the people that you are behind this project, and create a little bit of infrastructure that people can contribute. This will happen, and it's not 2 people anymore. We have now some people. Someone contributed for Visual Studio Code, the syntax highlighting file. So the whole project went into our GitHub organization, and the smaller fixes. And I invite everyone who is interested step by and contribute to the project. I try to have an open philosophy for what's going in. So as long as it's tested and it doesn't destroy things that already work, it's okay, right? People do it in the spare time. It needs to be somehow maintainable for others later. But beside this, we are open for a lot of things. And this is also why the Python and the C# implementation came into the project recently, the philosophy behind this.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to take another closer look at this myself now that I know it has C# binding support as well.
A little bit of warning, this is still new and experimental.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about how it compares to the other like C++ binding generator, Swig? You mentioned that there's interface definition files, which I believe is how Swig works. How do those compare? Is Djinni, in your opinion, easier to work with compared to Swig?
I cannot say easier to work with than Swig because I don't know so much about Swig. Okay. I know Swig is Jason. I have heard you used it in real world.
Yeah, I've been using Swig for like 15 years now, and if there's a good alternative, I would strongly consider it.
Yeah. So I mean, the first difference is, of course, I don't think Swig interfaces or generates stuff for Objective-C. So this is the first reason. The other thing is, as said, Djinni starts with interface definition language and the file, and I like this approach a lot. Then so here is a header file. Please generate the binding. What you can do with Swig.
Right.
Because the interface definition file is like a contract with you and the other components. And this is also why I like protobuffer, for example, where you have a contract, right? This is our contract, how we communicate with each other. These kind of messages in the case of protobuffer, where you have a file, or with Djinni you have this interface file, and it's the interface definition language is simple but very powerful. So it supports enums, then enum class for bit stuff in enums. It supports records, where you say these are structs or value types. So they are passed in by value. And interface, which are what you expect from a Python or Java object, that you always pass a reference, which is implemented under the hood as a shared pointer. And that's basically it. So everything happens in these entities, and it supports, of course, the basic data types. Then you have support for a list, a map, string, and binary data out of the box. But there is also something that is where you can define data types with YAML, and then you can add additional types that you don't define in Djinni, but you get from somewhere else, which is a pretty advanced topic and interesting. I haven't used this so far, but I know Johannes has. So from this, it's a very simple interface definition language, but very powerful, that supports ideas like the enum, and here is a value type, and here is the shared pointer type, or the reference type. And this is basically, and I don't know if there are so many other alternatives to Swig.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it's pretty much a Swig. Yeah.
So there is. Let me think. I mean, there is a commercial project called CppCast.com, SCAPIX.com, and they also would interface mobile platforms, but they have a custom license, or it's actually basically one person. So this is more like you generate your header files, and then you generate the glue code from the header files that you have. But with this project, I went there, so it's a single person project, and it has a custom license. When a project has a custom license, and it says you can use it if you obey the license, and then so, oh my God, I don't know, right? So actually, I cannot say if there are many more other alternatives other than providing a C interface and using the FFI that you have in various languages to communicate with the C++ via a C interface with.
That's actually just raises an interesting question, because I feel like I must be remembering an alternate universe or something, because I swear at one time Swig supported a C as a target language. So you could just generate bindings for use from C for your C++ library. But I could not find that when I was just looking at Swig like a week ago. And it made me wonder if Djinni could be used in that way.
This is why the Python bindings have been so interesting for us, because the Python bindings go via a C interface.
Right.
And also basically the Java also, but in a little bit different way. So you can look now at this actually, and then and say, okay, what is if we say we want to generate based on the interface definition language what we provide? What can we do to have a C interface that is more generalized, not tailored for Python? So this is why this has been so interesting for us to get in, to have an example, and maybe someone will look at this in some future if there is more time. So yeah, and then there is of course always the question is, how do you convert C++ specific types.
Right.
It is very obvious to go from a vector to a NS array in Objective-C or what is Java list. I wouldn't have to look it up. And things like this. So this needs to be handcrafted maybe a little bit always from what the target language provides and how this is implemented in the target language. But yeah, there is a C interface already today.
So you said vector can be shared currently with Java and Objective-C?
Yes.
And what about string? I think you mentioned string as well.
Strings are there. So a vector is an array list in Java and then is an array in Objective-C and a list in Python and system collection.generics.list in C#. And then you have unordered set in C++ becomes a hash set in Java and a set in Objective-C, a set in Python, and the system collections generic hash set in C#. And unordered map in C++ becomes a hash map in Java and a dictionary in Objective-C and a dictionary in Python and the system collection generic dictionary in C#. So these mappings, and there is also a date time, which is chrono system clock time point.
Oh, nice.
And becomes NS date or date time in Python and system date in C#. And so there are these mappings that need a little bit extra love for each language to implement them. But this is the nice convenience of the Djinni interface. You have these types out of the box, and you're very much in C++ land and don't need to care so much about what the other language supports because this is generated for you and it is there. And the way how it works is that you generate your interface definition file. You run the Djinni generator. It generates a bunch of base classes that you implement. And then you need, if you have for the interface types, you need to add static functions because there are no free functions. You need the free functions to generate to create something. You do a static create the interface you are actually in, and you implement this create function.
So if I want to instantiate my own templates in Djinni, like you say I can support map and vector. If I said, well, if I want a map of strings to vectors events, is that something that Djinni can handle?
I'm not sure if I don't want to answer this because I'm not sure.
Okay.
I would imagine it can handle a little bit because it translates the type, but you need to test this. Actually, if you want a vector of maps of whatever,
right?
If not, add a filling test case, and we can look at it if it's required.
I feel like my experience, like I said, it's been like 15 years I've been doing cross-language development of some sort. As long as you can support something like a vector of strings,
so this
then
works,
you can get everything that you need eventually. It might take a little bit more, working around the system if you need to, but whatever. Okay.
And we have since recently a small example application in the GitHub organization, which just takes one interface definition file. It has a CMake file that shows it uses Conan to get the generator and the support lib. By the way, we just released the version 1.0.0 from both the generator and the support lib. Not because we think it's so stable, because it's as stable as it always was. We haven't changed that much from the generator and the support lib, but we feel now comfortable with our infrastructure, with the GitHub organization, the CI, and so on. That we say, okay, actually, we take this code. This works good for a lot of people, and we started with 0.0.1 version, right? I said, okay, now this restructuring of the project, this works good. And we also distribute the the generator and the support lib. So you can use it via Conan. The sample project in the GitHub organization does this. Then it has a little bit opinionated CMake, how you utilize the generator from CMake, that it processes the interface definition file. When you change the interface definition file, it will regenerate the code. And then it shows also how to run C++ unit test, Objective-C unit test, Swift unit tests, Java unit tests from within CMake.
Nice.
So the basic idea why I do this is that I said when you want to deliver this, you want to deliver it as a component for the language, and this means you should have the unit tests you have as close as possible in your project.
Mm-hmm.
So when you make a component, a library, a package, framework, or whatever, with the interface, you have a bunch of unit tests in the target language, and in your project, you run all this stuff via CMake target test, and it will execute in your CI and test the library from the target language, and then you can take what has been generated and pass on to consume it to the project. And this is on a very early stage, a little bit the example, but it's already working, and I have plans to extend it a little bit and create a tutorial around this to have a simple intro into Hello World for running C++ on Android or iOS or both. Because even if it's technically, if you have all the pieces together, it's complicated because it's a lot of different small pieces that need to play together. So what makes it complicated is all the different pieces you need together, and how Android expects to be a package that you can consume, and how iOS expects a framework that you can consume from iOS and put on the device with your application, and so on. So this part is getting these parts correct is hard. The single step, each one step is not terribly complicated, but putting them all together is quite some steps that I would like to showcase over time in this example project.
That's just even taking the mobile platforms out of the picture. Just yesterday, I was actually writing some unit test for some Python bindings that were generated by Swig, and just to get everything all lined up so that it works, so that you know which version of Python you want to use for your test, and then to make sure that your test knows how to find the Python library that you just compiled so that you can actually load that module and run your test. It's more difficult than it should be. So I'm really happy to hear that you are working on examples and tests that show how to do that kind of thing as well. I have
currently, unfortunately, Python not on the list. So the tests are currently Objective-C and Java. But
still, same idea, yeah.
Python you want also Hello World, you copy from and start. And yes, this Python is there are multiple ways of having Python on your system.
Yes. And
say, okay, I want this Python version. You can virtual environments. You can use the ISTF version manager to get it. You can use DRM on Linux or Mac OS. So yeah, this is.
But having that kind of example for people to go and look at, even if you don't have a Python one yet, it sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, we built tests on for the support lib, and this builds on the CI, so you can look at the CI and the GitHub action, what it's actually doing. But this is not very accessible to say, hey, to new users who say, hey, I would like to do this. Yeah, look at the CI. Right. This is not a nice intro to for the Hello World. So
yeah, that's almost an RTFM kind of answer back, I think.
Yeah.
Look at the CI. Yeah.
If you're, have a library that you want to bring on and make a Android or iOS application using it, how hard is it to write these interface definition files that Djinni works with?
Well, absolutely not hard. It is as I said, you can look at the documentation for the interface definition language. It is basically you declare what it is, enum, then it's an enum flags, then it's an enum class. The records becomes a struct, and interface becomes a class in C++. And there you put in simply your properties and the type. So name, column, type, semicolon. You can add Toxygen documentation into the interface definition. This will be transferred into the generated files. So you will have it available from Java, Objective-C, and C++. Yes, I said the guys at Dropbox that did awesome work. So this is a really, really good project. I should maybe mention the generator itself is written in Scala.
Oh.
So yeah, but it's if you know what Ruby is, then Scala is not that it will at least look familiar. I was also so when I looked at it, okay, it's Scala. Oh, I'm scared, right? And I looked at it, so it looks like Ruby. I can handle it. so then and yeah, and I said this is pretty stable what it does. So the processing of the interface files and the generation of the glue code. And this is pretty stable, so there is nothing to do. And if you add new languages, then of course it will be like the Python and the C#. We depend a little bit on users, right, to give feedback because you can test some things, but at the end you always need someone else who uses this thing in a totally different way and says, this is crap, this doesn't work at all, right? And then you, okay, can we find out why? And then you build up on this, right? So because that's how it is. And from this aspect, we rely a little bit on this, but it is also very interesting. So you have all these different languages. You can work with all these different languages. You can work with Scala. There is the support lib part. There is the generator part. There is the documentation. I think Johannes Kraft, he made such a wonderful documentation. If you look at the web page, I'm so enthusiastic about this because normally documentation is all a little bit neglected in projects, right? But this is really beautiful. And well made. So it takes all the markdown files from the different projects. So you put the per project, the documentation in the project repository. And then there is this master repository that take all these markdown files and generates HTML documentation and publishes it as GitHub pages. And it looks good. It has tag theme support. So this is really, I like it. Yeah.
Nice. So we talked a bit about some of the new things that have been added, the Python and the C# support. Is there anything you have like future plans or something you're hoping will get worked on, like in the queue? Are you looking for more contributors?
Yes, always, of course, and people using it. So if you use today Dropbox, Djinni, then you can go on the fly. It is a drop-in replacement. We had a little bit of breaking change, but you can turn it off. But the breaking change we have make your life easier. Because one of the things is when you create a Java library, you need to have when you load the library, you need to set up Djinni. And you needed to write this code so far by hand. Now it's auto-generated for you. Nice. So and if you have already this code, then you will have the same functions defined 2 times if you generate it, but you can either turn it off or just use the existing one. Otherwise, we have just a few fixes that shouldn't break anything for you. So you can drop in, replace it with the cross-language CPP Djinni. Then, of course, improvements. If users have bugs, then please report them. We will fix them if possible. The new languages, of course, need users and we need a way more feedback. My personal goal is, of course, to keep the project as a community project. So not having a bus factor of 1. So having multiple maintainers so that this project can always proceed and pull requests can be reviewed. Making an open environment that is actually, we don't have very strong rules. When you contribute, you need to obey whatever and so on, right? This is not the case. We try to make, if you contribute something, you're the owner of the code for a while. But I know it's an open source project, so people will come and leave. So the only thing is it should be maintainable and readable. But as long as it is, we're open for everything. I personally want to to work as time allows it on the documentation tutorial, how to use it to make the whole topic more accessible, and have an example how you get C++ into a iOS app or Android app, that it becomes basically, okay, I have this template, a hello world, and can build based on this one. This is my personal goal. And then I said that the rest, I know there are people that have Node.js bindings written. There are a lot of people that have their personal fork of Djinni. And some of them said, oh yeah, we have this Node. One person I know, he has this Node.js implementation. So you can go to JavaScript and yeah, but it's not beautiful. I cannot share it, right? But I would encourage the people to just open a pull request, and if it's not beautiful, maybe someone else will say, "Oh, I have also Node.js bindings," because there are a lot of forks from Djinni, and especially when it was made read-only, people have implemented the changes their own. So what I want to have is this I want to focus also a little bit on the community aspect, keeping the community alive and welcoming, and say, okay, if you have an improvement, please submit it to us, and we will put it in. And then this is a code that does not rot.
And it looks right now, if you were to search for C++ Djinni, you're going to find the Dropbox first. That's going to come up on the top link, which says this project has been archived. So what is you've said you've created a GitHub organization, but I don't know if you said the name. So go ahead and tell the listeners where to go to if they want the latest and greatest one.
Yes, so the organization is cross-language-CPP on GitHub.
Okay.
So this is pretty long, but I think this is a good name. The documentation page is a little bit shorter. It's djinni.xlcpp.dev. And this is basically the best entry point.
Okay.
Because the documentation gives you then the link also to the GitHub repository. There is also still a Slack channel that Dropbox created back the days, where you can invite yourself to mobile development for Slack. And there is also a Slack channel on CPP Lang.
Okay.
Which is dedicated for mobile development. But for the Slack, there is also the mobile CPP Slack, which is dedicated. The whole Slack is dedicated to mobile development. So yeah, I'm not sure what we could do to make us better findable.
It would be nice if
helps a little bit.
And if you know someone at the Djinni organization, one of the original, or someone at the Dropbox organization, if they could put a link, say,
I don't think they can do this because they have I have also forgotten there is the one person let me look up the name that I don't say it wrong, but I will say it. I think I will say it wrong in any way. So Arthur, he's from the original Dropbox team, and he's still on the Slack and helped us a little bit with his, what he remembered about the Python binding, for example. But he has his email address wrong on the Dropbox README, not even this could have been fixed. So I don't think that Dropbox can or will fix anything for us.
Okay.
That's too bad.
Yeah. It's funny because every time I log into GitHub lately, I get a notification from GitHub asking me if I have...
Just the name to get it right. Andrew Twyman, not Arthur. Andrew Twyman, and here's so people that wrote the mail on him based on the email in the original Dropbox. If it didn't get the answer, then because the mail went to the wrong address.
Okay.
Well, Harald, it's been great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for telling us about the latest with Djinni. I'm glad that it's still actively being developed. I'm hopefully going to go take another look at it myself.
Yeah, please do this.
Anything else you want to plug before we let you go?
Yes, of course, C++ user groups. Because currently there is, of course, a little bit of break in with C++ user group, but I think we all can see light at the end of the tunnel that physical meetups will be possible again. I mean, there's a lot going on virtual. C++ user groups are living from the community, so please get in contact with them. If anyone comes over to Stockholm and wants to visit a meetup or speak at a meetup, just contact me. Then we can arrange something. I'm always looking for speakers. We do the videos on our YouTube channel, YouTube/Sweden CPP. And there is a swedencpp.se for Sweden homepage, which lists all C++ meetups that currently happen worldwide.
Oh,
nice.
So you have a link to worldwide, and you get all the meetups, and the most are currently virtual, so you can access them. And it has also a video feed where C++ related videos are shown, and a blog feed where I think nearly 50 blog sources are there. So you can go there. And yeah, this is also maybe if you want to create a community, there is this organization, it's called CppCom, which is very like in the name, like CppCon, and it's not an accident because John Kalb actually created this. And and Jason, you should actually be there because you're running a meetup group. And last year we had every month or so, we met organizers around the world, talking a little bit how it is to run a meetup group and discussing things about this, but also for event organizers. So and there is material available when you want to start a user group. There is a starter kit with information how you can do this, what to do, also for a conference, and you can find this on cppcom.org.
Awesome.
Yeah, and this is the community aspect I would like to mention.
Okay. Well, Harald, it's been great having you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great to talk with you.